Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Squared Circle News Network. Today is June 13th, 2021, and this is episode number 12. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Patrick, and also, as always, I want to thank you so much and let you know how much I appreciate your taking the time to click on the stream and give these videos a shot. Everybody's welcome. Everybody that's a wrestling fan that's passionate about wrestling like I am, you're welcome to come here and watch and join. As a matter of fact, as long as you're here watching this video, click that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Click the thumbs up for the like. And also don't forget to hit that little bell for notifications. So every time that I upload new content, you're going to be made aware of it. But I appreciate you being here. Like I always say, you're welcome to leave comments. Just be respectful. The YouTube wrestling community can be a very ugly, toxic place when it comes to marks and fans and trolls and things like that. Some of them just, for some reason, aren't happy unless they're taking shots at somebody. And I want to keep this friendly. I want to keep it open conversation, open dialogue, share ideas, and talk about the thing that we love, and that is professional wrestling. As always, I'm going to start today with WWE news. And Wrestling Observer newsletter reported recently about Triple H during his media call. Took the time to blame the fans for their displeasure with the WWE product. And just an interesting comment that he made is that the fans worry too much about, and this isn't verbatim, I read the thing and I was going to read through his whole comment word for word, but I'm just going to sort of sum it up in a nutshell. He talked about that fans worry too much about where wrestlers are going and where they're going to land as far as not so much promotion, but I think he was talking more about NXT wrestlers, if they're staying in NXT, if they're going to the main roster. And he says fans worry too much about that stuff, about where they're going. They worry too much about where the stories are going and where they're going to end up. That when the show is over, that they jump on their smartphones and they look for what's happening. They look for scoops and inside information, and he says it just ruins it for themselves. And they need to either like it and watch, or don't watch if you don't like it. And that's his attitude. And that's, man, you can't get more of a company line than that. And Triple H is, I've never in my entire wrestling fan life been a fan of Triple H. His bearing people for his own benefit is well known. I feel that I'm not going to question his marriage with Stephanie McMahon, but I think he worked his ass off to get in that family so he could be in a position of power and be in a future position where financially he's going to be more than well taken care of. So to me, Triple H is one of the worst things about professional wrestling. He's never been the most talented guy. And I'll give him credit when the things he does well. Triple H has got a great presence on the microphone. He can cut a promo just as well as just about anybody else. I mean, he's not Ric Flair, he's not Shawn Michaels, he's not Cody Rhodes, but he can hold his own. He can get you interested. But as far as his in-ring work, I mean, come on, let's be honest. What does Triple H have in his repertoire that makes him any better than anybody else, or even as good as an above average wrestler? You know, punches, kicks, it's so bland. And his ring psychology is decent at most, but the way he handles himself in matches there's nothing exciting about it. There's nothing that says, oh man, I can't wait to see Triple H wrestle anybody, because it's just not interesting. It's not exciting. But this blaming the fans, this is pure company line. And you know, WWE's ratings have been declining more and more, and it's not because of fans worrying too much about where wrestlers and storylines are gonna go and gonna land. It's about the quality of your product. You're firing guys that could easily be a huge part of your roster, be a huge part of your programming, be a huge part of your ratings, but you don't give them the chance. You worry about when is Brock Lesnar going to come back, and let's bring back some legends for a special Raw or a special show, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. You rely on the past instead of looking to the future, and that's the problem with your product. It's not the fans' fault. You give the fans compelling TV You give the fans consistency and logic in your storylines, and the fans are going to be there. You give them quality wrestling, and the fans are going to be there. They're not going to keep coming back for the same old recycled garbage week after week after week after week. And that's what the WWE gives you. And speaking of recycled garbage, we're still on the subject of the WWE. Dave Meltzer reported recent Wrestling Observer newsletter that Roman Reigns is possibly in the future. He didn't really speculate on near future or distant future, but Roman Reigns is going to be looking at, most likely at some point, a huge babyface turn. And, that's all well and good, but you're putting Roman Reigns right back where he was before he took time off to deal with his leukemia. He was being forced down the fans' throat as a babyface. It wasn't working. Vince McMahon didn't care. He continued to do it. And there was no good heat for Roman Reigns. It was go home heat. Nobody wanted to see him on TV anymore. And Vince McMahon just continued to force him down your throat until this medical issue took him out. And it's going to go back to that, because Meltzer's reporting that Roman Reigns is Vince's priority number one. And he compared Roman Reigns' heel run to Kenny Omega's heel run. And, this is probably right now the best character Roman Reigns has had in his time in pro wrestling. Kenny Omega's been good since day one. There's no question about it. But the difference between these two heel runs is Kenny Omega's matches are exciting. Kenny Omega, when he wrestles someone, he's always good. He's arguably, and you could make the argument that Kenny Omega is the best in-ring performer in the world, and there's a million arguments as to why that is. But when Kenny Omega, as good as he is, when he wrestles a match, the matches are exciting. Kenny Omega sells hard for other wrestlers. He puts other wrestlers over. He does what he needs to do. He makes the matches compelling. He tells a story. The psychology is great. WWE has just been putting Roman Reigns in the ring with opponents, and it's been squash match after squash match. And last night on SmackDown, I'm sorry, not last night, but Friday night on SmackDown was a typical example of a Roman Reigns appearance. He absolutely destroyed and dominated Rey and Dominic Mysterio. Now, Rey Mysterio's got an upcoming title match with Roman Reigns. How can you look at this match with any interest after seeing Roman Reigns just completely destroy Rey Mysterio in the ring? What gives anybody the impression that Rey Mysterio has a shot in this match? Kenny Omega hasn't had the AEW World title that long, but his matches, they take the time and the promos and the efforts and the in-ring work to make the opponents look like they could conceivably beat Kenny Omega. And this last match at Double or Nothing with Pac and Orange Cassidy was a perfect example. There were so many near falls in this match. Omega sold for the offense of Pac and Orange Cassidy at all turns, and you know in your head, you say to yourself, well, Omega's going to have a long title run, he's not going to lose it, but you can't help but tense up when he's getting pinned, because that's just how good he makes his matches. You don't see this with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is squash match after squash match, nothing entertaining about it. And as good as I gave credit to Roman Reigns for this heel turn character, because this is the best that he's been since he's been in front of a camera in a wrestling ring, being this heel character. And I give him all the credit in the world for that. But the problem is they're not working it the right way. They're not working the storyline the right way. And this is going to get as old as his face character did. And it's going to be the same thing. You're just going to get so tired of seeing Roman Reigns in this capacity that you're just going to want him to go away again. And it's a shame, because they stumble across these nuggets of quality programming. They did it with The Fiend. The Fiend took off so quickly. People just loved this whole character, this Firefly Funhouse, and then turning into The Fiend and what he did. And what did they do? They took their hottest act in their organization and they buried it. They had the Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. That was a complete disaster. You had Goldberg squashing The Fiend. Now The Fiend is pretty much gone. it's insane. It makes absolutely no sense. They pass the gimmick on, and you don't even see the Fiend anymore. Who knows what's in the future for him? He hasn't been on WWE programming. I'm not sure for how long right now, but it's clearly just another example of them dropping the ball with something that's good. And this Roman Reigns is going to be the same thing. They finally got a compelling storyline going with Reigns, this head of the table, this dominant character, and dominance is one thing, but squash matches are just they get old very fast. You have no confidence that you're going to see anybody beat this guy. You don't look forward to the matches. The matches don't come off as compelling. It just gets ridiculous. And it's gonna get old really fast, and once again, people are gonna get tired of seeing Roman Reigns on TV. And this magnificent heel turn that they gave him is gonna be just completely flushed down the drain, and it's gonna be history. I'm gonna move on to AEW right now, and I want to talk about. I'm gonna get back to Kenny Omega because Kenny Omega has been very active in the ring. He's had title defenses in AEW. He's been defending the Impact Championship. He's got a match coming up in August against Andrade for the AAA title. And he's not slowing down. But what a lot of you may not know is Kenny Omega is dealing with some really nagging injuries that would probably give another wrestler pause to continue as actively in the ring as he has been, and take some time to let it heal. But being holding 3 belts right now, he just doesn't have that opportunity. And this is again from Wrestling Observer newsletter reports Kenny Omega dealing with nagging injuries, and what they are is last week he's one of the first things they list is a stomach virus. And coincidentally enough, I had a stomach virus last week, and if it's anything like what Omega had, it was absolutely brutal. I was down and out for close to a full week, antibiotics, stuff coming out of all ends of me, and I my body was ravaged from what it went through, and I completely had enough at one point. But that was nasty. So if he had something similar, then I feel for him on that aspect. But it goes on further than that. He has a deep bruise near his tailbone. He's got an athletic hernia, wear and tears on his knees, and at Double or Nothing in the match versus Pac and Orange Cassidy, he took the AEW title belt and delivered a shot to Pac. In doing so, sliced open his hand and got 7 stitches. All this going on, and he still wrestled at the Impact pay-per-view last night, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more after I cover the AEW news. But it's unbelievable that, and this isn't the first time Omega has wrestled with injuries that would, normally put somebody else on the shelf for a little while. When he was the IWGP Heavyweight Champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Kenny Omega wrestled with a broken heel, broken ribs, I believe a broken hand. He continues to go through everything. I'm not sure how he does it, because something like bruised or broken ribs and the broken heel, I can't imagine. He doesn't change his style when he wrestles when he has his injuries, and that's the amazing thing. He does these incredible high spots. The diving somersault over the top rope, the Guitarro Crusher, the Snapdragon suplexes, the You Can't Escape move where he does the front flip with the wrestler on his shoulders and then does the moonsault off the bottom turnbuckle. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't change his style. And doing what he does with the injuries that he has just absolutely blows my mind and gives me as much respect as I have for Kenny Omega to begin with. It increases exponentially knowing the kind of pain that he wrestles in pretty much every time he steps in the ring. And as much as I like seeing Kenny Omega on TV, I would be completely understanding for him to take some time away from getting in the ring. If you want to be on camera, continue to cut promos. His chemistry right now with Don Callis is just amazing. Don Callis just is so good at what he does. The way he puts Kenny Omega over on the microphone, he's truly just gifted in this, and doing an amazing job right now as the managerial type, the invisible hand, so to speak. This role that he has with Kenny Omega, complete respect for what he's doing, and uh, we're just going to have to see what happens in the future, what Omega is going to be capable of, and if he does take some time to let some of these things heal. He made a comment that was also mentioned in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, that the way his body feels right now, and at times when he wrestles, that he thinks it's time to maybe hang it up and retire. And as much as devastating as that would be to all of professional wrestling, because Omega transcends the brand. He's been so good in Japan, and now wrestling between Impact and AEW, and with this Forbidden Door being open, who knows what's in the future. But if he were to decide to retire at some point, how could you blame the guy? Knowing what he deals with and what he goes through, pain and just with what's happening to his body, how can you not understand? So, here's just hoping that Omega has a chance to heal at some point, give himself a little bit of a break so he can continue. And hopefully there's no retirement anywhere in the near future for Omega. And I don't believe there is. I believe he's got considerable amount of years left in him, but we'll take it as it goes and enjoy what we have when we have it, and have to respect any decision that he makes in the future. Dynamite on Friday night was another solid show. They're doing really well with these Friday night late night shows, just 10 to midnight. I remember back in the day when Raw was on USA, and I was a big fan of Raw. We're talking Attitude Era Raw. And they would have those times when the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show would run on USA in the normal Raw time slot. And then Raw would come on, I think it was at 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. It could have been 10. I'm not 100% sure, but it was late. It was definitely 10 or 11. And the shows were awful. You really didn't see any of the superstars in any major capacity. It was mostly mid to lower carders who weren't involved in anything. Just at the time weren't very good. These are the guys that they'd rely on to make these shows happen. And Dynamite's just not doing that. They're running this later show on Friday nights, and they're giving you quality. And God, you got to respect that, because they, and I don't know exactly how they do this as far as dark, if they film a bunch of darks in one night, or if they film the darks after every single episode of Dynamite or before every episode of Dynamite. But you got to imagine that it's got to be an incredibly long night for some of these guys to have this late live show, this Dynamite, and then also film dark on top of it. Just hats off to these guys for as hard as they're working to keep this product as good as it is. And some of the highlights from this last episode of Dynamite was a very interesting announcement by Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone, in a nutshell, announced that Arn Anderson's son, Brock Anderson, was going to debut in a tag team match with Cody Rhodes against QT Marshall and Aaron Solo. But when Tony made the announcement, he announced the debut match of Brock, and he just had this little pause, and he followed it up with Anderson. But that people at home, people in the crowd, everybody was, because it's well known that when AEW launches something or gets somebody in on a surprise, that nobody really knows about it until it happens. Tony Khan is so good at keeping things under wraps, and I could just imagine the gasp in everybody involved in AEW and who was ever in the crowd, just expecting Tony Schiavone to say Brock Lesnar, and it came out with Brock Anderson. But just a couple things on this. I am glad it wasn't Brock Lesnar. I mean, I've talked about Brock Lesnar on past episodes. I am not a fan of a guy that has absolutely no love or passion for this business, who comes in and takes this enormous paycheck for a couple of appearances when you have guys that are busting their ass all year long wrestling for you and not making anywhere near the type of money that they shell out to Brock Lesnar, who, these are people that love this business compared to a guy that just wants the paycheck. Doesn't care what he has to do. And when I say he doesn't care what he has to do, he always likes to look good. He wants to be the guy on top. He wants to win the championship and come back a couple times a year to defend it. And it's a joke. So I wouldn't want that kind of toxicity in AEW. As far as I'm concerned, it's cancerous, and it hurts the morale of your roster. What it does for ratings, whatever. To me, and this might be a foolish statement, but to me, it's not worth whatever ratings you get from that, because what good is it? What good is it for the WWE to bring Brock Lesnar out a couple times a year, pay him millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that other guys may not make through their entire career, and work so much harder than he does? So you get this ratings bump when he comes back and he wrestles these matches, and then when he's gone again for a majority of the year, your ratings go right back to normal. Is there any value in that really at all? I don't see it. I have no desire to ever see Brock Lesnar in an AEW ring. If Tony Khan ever works that deal, pulls that trigger, however you want to phrase it, I'll respect Tony Khan, because I trust what he does 100% with AEW. I mean, there haven't been, in my opinion, there haven't been very many bad choices on Tony Khan's part in this organization. So I always give him the benefit of the doubt, even if something doesn't ring clear to me at first. I wait it out and see where it goes, and there's most of the time I'm proven wrong, and Tony Khan just comes out looking, and he won Booker of the Year last year, and there's a reason for that. You can be a Jim Cornette and you can say that it's fixed or it's rigged or however you want to put it, but Tony Khan is really, he's the EVPs, he's got the Elite, he's got Omega, he's got the Bucks, he's got Cody, and Jericho. I put Jericho's not a part of the Elite, but he is integral in producing the show, and his ideas are I'm sure used on a regular basis. So I can't say that Tony Khan is solely responsible for everything that comes on TV, but he does have the final say in everything. He can pull the trigger and okay or nay something anytime he wants. I'm sure he's very fair. I'm sure he's very open, but what comes on air is his decision 100% at the end of the day, and their quality of programming is just so high, and I have no complaints for what he decides to do. So if he ever decided that, hey, we're going to sign Brock Lesnar to something, and I doubt that would ever happen, not because Tony Khan wouldn't be interested. I think he would definitely be interested in taking that kind of a name who has that kind of selling ability in the WWE. That's something that would move the needle, definitely, as far as people turning the channel to see where it would go. So from that aspect, I can understand it, but I don't see, I see Tony Khan being a little bit smarter as how he pays people, and I don't think he'd ever come up with a price tag that would be sufficient for Brock Lesnar's greedy, selfish desires, and that's why I think it would never happen. But who knows? They always say that you never say never in pro wrestling, and that's really true. A lot of things have happened that never did I think I would ever see again. I never thought I'd see Bret Hart on good terms with the WWE again, and there he was with his Hall of Fame ceremony, and he was there, and it all worked out, and that's just an example, but anything's possible, and as always, it's wait and see. Another big highlight for me on this episode of Dynamite was the TNT Championship match. You had Miro defending against Evil Uno, and I gotta tell you, I could go on and on and on about this for a long time, but I have to say that it's absolutely unbelievable how good Evil Uno and Stu Grayson are, not only as a tag team, because they're amazing as a tag team. Their chemistry and their fluidity and what they do as a tandem team in the ring is incredible. You can put them up against any of the best tag teams in the world right now, and they will not even be close out of place. They could easily win any championship, in my opinion. They are that good, but even as individual wrestlers, and Uno proved that with Miro, he had an absolutely spectacular TNT title match with Miro. Um, he had so much good offense, and credit to Miro. He's not a selfish guy. He'll sell for anybody. So the two of them working together just made this a spectacular TNT championship match. Miro, of course, didn't win at the end. It wouldn't make sense for him to lose his title so soon. They've got this destructive beast character going full force, and I love it. I hope he holds this title for a while. I've got some speculation as to who could come in or who could be involved in taking the title off him, or things that could happen leading to him losing the title. But for right now, leave it be. It's as good as gold right now. He's destructive. He's incredible. He's just absolutely destroying everybody that comes in his path, but not squash match destroying. Thank God. He has legitimate matches with everybody he gets into the ring with, and this Evil Uno one was one of the best ones I've seen. Just such a good match, and Uno just does Uno has trimmed down quite a bit from the original launch of AEW. When the Dark Order first came out, I would say he was considerably heavier, and he's not by any means right now a small man, but he's much trimmer. But the things he does for a guy his size, he's just one of those large men that can do things that, physically you would look at him and say he shouldn't be able to do that. But, he comes off those turnbuckles with sentons and other, aerial moves, and it just fits him. He does it, and he's so good at it, and he's extremely strong, far stronger than he looks, and it's not at all unbelievable to see him getting the kind of offense that he did on Dynamite against Miro. Completely believable and completely solid, and just love seeing these guys wrestle. As much as, God took sorry, I get frazzled when I talk about this, but God took Brody Lee way too soon, and he was so good for the Dark Order and gave them so much legitimacy. They struggled at the beginning with their image and what the fans were seeing. A lot of fans didn't like it. I didn't care necessarily for the gimps and all the other things like that they were doing, but I immediately saw how good Uno and Grayson were, and Brody Lee came in and just absolutely took them from here to here as far as legitimacy, and I want to see that again. I don't know how they're going to handle that. They talk about, Tony Khan at a press scrum recently said that -1 is the leader of the Dark Order, and that's cool for the feel-good story, but I've got ideas for guys that I'd like to see come in and pay tribute to Brody Lee and take over the Dark Order as a leader, to give them that same intensity and legitimacy that he did. But right now they're great wrestlers, all of them to a man. I haven't seen anybody in the Dark Order that can't wrestle. Ten's amazing. Alan Angels 5 is incredible. John Silver and Alex Reynolds are another, like Grayson and Uno, just an amazing tag team that can step in the ring as individuals and perform just as well. So as far as wrestling capability, they're up there with anybody. But I really think that they're leaning a little bit too much towards that comedy character type thing, and I like the dark intensity that Brody Lee brought to the Dark Order, and I'd like to see that again. So, we'll have to wait and see what they decide to do with that. If they keep it as long as these guys keep having the quality matches they're having, I'm fine with it. But in my opinion, I would definitely like to see that same intensity that Brody Lee brought from another individual to come in and do kind of the same thing that he did, and give them that dark, nasty, like when they took the TNT title from Cody Rhodes and just wound up beating down the entire Nightmare family. That's the kind of thing I see the Dark Order as, that more serious thing than what they're doing now. But as everything, time will tell. I'll talk briefly about the Impact pay-per-view last night. The pay-per-view as a whole was pretty insignificant to me, so there wasn't much on there that I would think about talking about other than the main event because Kenny Omega, the belt collector defending these titles, it's just a big deal in wrestling right now, and interesting to see where it will go. But he faced Moose, of course, last night at the Against All Odds pay-per-view, and all in all, it was a fine match. Uh, Here's my takeaway from what I noticed when I watch Omega interact with these Impact talents. When I would see Moose in a ring with, and I'm not going to name anybody in particular because I've seen him in the ring with several talents in Impact Wrestling, he looks like a dominant beast character. He looks like a guy that I would say, yeah, he'd fit in on any roster. Put him in the ring with Kenny Omega, and he's still a talented guy. I won't take away from Moose's talent because, he's an ex-football player that came in and is better than a lot of talents that come from other sports that come to professional wrestling. I think Moose did much better than most others. But you put him in the ring against Kenny Omega, and he doesn't look as dominant as he does against anybody else in Impact. And it was a fine back and forth match. A lot of good spots. Kenny Omega never looked like he was in trouble to me. No matter what Moose hit him with, no matter what offense Kenny sold for, I just never got the feeling that Moose is going to take this match. It's not. He just didn't deliver that way, and I was actually a little disappointed by that aspect. But he did some really good things. There was a couple spots where Omega ran him into the guardrail with his shoulder. I believe it was his right shoulder, and then into the ring post. And he sold that injury for the duration of the match. And I got a lot of respect for that because that's got to be something difficult to do, to focus on one part of your body and kind of tailor your whole offense around what you should or should not be able to do if you really had that injury. So he sold that well. But like I said, Kenny Omega, I never felt like he was in trouble. The match ended where Moose was going to spear Kenny Omega, and Omega pulled the referee in front of him, and the ref took the spear, and Omega pretty much just stepped aside, and the Young Bucks came out to interfere, and they gave some super kicks to Moose, and then delivered the BTE trigger, and Omega they propped Moose up on Omega's shoulders. He gave him the one wing angel, and then the Bucks pulled the referee in to make the 3 count, and that was the end of the match. And then after the match, Sami Callihan came to the ring with a bat and was threatening the Bucks and Omega, and Don Callis kind of got distracted him and gave the chance for everybody to get away. But these matches are fine. The last match that Omega had where he won the title and this defense, Omega, his matches are never going to be bad. I've seen him wrestle guys that I didn't think could stack up, and he's just one of those guys that no matter your talent level, Omega can raise the bar of the match and make it as good as he needs to make it himself. And that's just how he is. But as far as the Impact store side of this, I don't know who could conceivably come in off the Impact roster and take the Impact title off Omega. It would have to be some kind of a screwy finish. It would have to be something on Scott D'Amore's part, playing some sort of character that gets involved and somehow aids in his talent taking the belt, because nobody's going to beat Omega clean as far as I can tell. I don't see anybody that could believably do that. And Sami Callihan, I've never been a big Sami Callihan fan. His in-ring work is okay, but sometimes his character and the way he sells is just sometimes a little way too over dramatic for me, and it doesn't always ring right. But he's going to be the next challenger to Omega, and we'll just have to see if this is the time that they come up with a storyline where they can interfere in a way to give Callihan the victory without making Omega look weak, because I would not have Omega lose clean to anybody on the Impact roster. It's not only is it not right for Omega, it just wouldn't be believable in my opinion to the fans. because Omega is just so much better than that, and he's really head and shoulders above any talent that I've seen in Impact. I don't see anybody being able to make it look convincing that they could beat Omega clean. So I expect some sort of chicanery, tomfoolery, however you want to put it, involved in his losing the title. But I'm interested to see if they do something like this, something underhanded, something fishy to get Sami Callihan this win. But we'll see. We'll have to wait for the next show and see how they play this out. AEW has announced its touring schedule, and not their whole touring schedule. You know, they're back to scheduling on the road and traveling with the promotion, which is just phenomenal. It's nice to get that back to normal. It's nice to see fans in the crowd again, and it's just it was something that really pro wrestling needed. But they've announced some of their top shows, and Wrestling Headlines delivered this news, WrestlingHeadlines.com, four shows. Is it four? We've got Road Rage, Fyter Fest, and Fight for the Fallen. So it's three. Fyter Fest takes place over 2 nights like it did last year. But Road Rager is a new event that I didn't see last year, and the only match announced for that one is QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes having a strap match, and that's going to take place on July 7th. It's going to originate from Miami. Fyter Fest will take place on July 14th and July 21st consecutive weeks, and the first night's going to be in Austin, Texas, and the second night's going to be in Garland, Texas. No matches announced yet for that card. And finally, Fight for the Fallen takes place on July 28th in North Carolina. And again, no matches announced for that one. So the cards will, of course, flesh out by the time they get closer to these events, because that's what AEW does. They keep their stories consistent, and they build their match cards based off what's going on, and it makes more sense to announce the matches after things happen on Dynamite than it does to just say, well, these are going to be the matches, and you're going to sit there and wonder, well, why? So they give you logic and consistency. Finally, we're going to move on to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan just recently had its Dominion show, and there was a match for the vacated IWGP Heavyweight title. Kazuchika Okada versus Shingo Takagi, and Shingo won the title. And I have mixed emotions on this, and I'll tell you why. I'm not opposed to Shingo Takagi winning this belt, because he certainly is talented enough, and he deserves it. There's no two ways about it. But my thought process is, we're in this window right now of this forbidden door being open and not knowing what wrestlers are gonna take part in traveling back and forth and appearing on other shows, etc., etc. And my thought process is, if you're gonna be in the middle of this sort of program where guys could be going to different places to be on different shows, wouldn't you want your most recognizable name holding your title, so that if they were to travel and take part in something else, people are gonna notice? If a casual fan hears Kazuchika Okada IWGP World Championship is going to be appearing on All Out, AEW's All Out pay-per-view, people are going to know Okada's name, and they're going to take interest. Most casual fans may not know who Shingo Takagi is, and what I would say is, you should watch his matches and understand how good he really is. But just at face value, more people know Kazuchika Okada than they do Shingo Takagi. So I think Okada would have had more value holding that title as far as marketing your brand to other countries and other fans. But we'll see how it plays out, because who knows? I mean, Takagi may be just a transitional champion, with Will Ospreay having to vacate the title because of injuries. Takagi may just have the belt for a very short period of time. They may be rewarding him for his exemplary work, and rightfully so if they did that. Applause to them to recognize how good he's been. But we'll have to wait and see. And after the match, Takagi called out Kota Ibushi as the first challenger to his title, and I mean that could be interesting. That could indicate that Ibushi is going to take the title back because he had for such a short period of time. I got to tell you, I feel for this guy because I don't understand the booking around Kota Ibushi. He is head and shoulders one of their best in-ring performers. Just absolutely off the charts phenomenal, capable of really anything. The things he does, acrobatic wise, power wise, just ground and pound psychology wise, he's good at it all. And he had the belt finally. He won the world title. I thought it was long overdue, and then immediately lost it. I didn't understand, and I got to say, a big part of me hopes that he wins it back right now and holds it for a while, at least until Ospreay gets back in the ring and heals from what he's dealing with his neck injury. But New Japan Pro Wrestling's booking is extremely interesting. I mean, they are so far ahead on their storylines. I've read things where they've got their plans made for in excess of a year in the future. And when things unexpected happen, like this Ospreay injury, of course they have to change up on the fly, but they usually do so well. And I'm not going to sit here and criticize their choice of Takagi winning this title. Who knows what they have in mind? And they're almost impossible to predict. Anybody watching these shows for any length of time, for at least a couple of years, would say Kota Ibushi's going to win this title and he's going to be champion for a while, and it just didn't happen, which is, whether it's right or wrong, whether I agree with it or not, it's the proof that, New Japan books the way they see fit, and they have their storylines planned out, and they know what they're doing, and they do it for a reason, and the fans keep coming back, and I can't argue their decisions. However I feel about whoever I want to see have the title, it doesn't matter. They do what they do for a reason, and they usually do it well. I'm going to cut it off there, folks. Thank you again so much for joining me. I have a blast being here talking to you guys, no matter how few or how many of you there are. I'm going to start marketing myself a little bit more, getting the Squared Circle News Network name out on social media, hopefully pick up some more subscribers, because I'd really like to, have some people join us and make this a little bit bigger family. But it's like I said from day one, however many or however few subscribers I have, I'm going to continue to do this because it's a work of passion for me. It's not a job to me. It's fun. I love talking about professional wrestling. I love sharing my opinions, and I like to have a back and forth conversation. So as always, leave a comment in the comment section. Be respectful. That's all I ask. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can argue with me. You can tell me why your opinion is more right than mine. I have no problem with that. Just do so respectfully. There's not too much to ask. And as always, as long as you're here, do me that solid. Click the subscribe button. Click the thumbs up for the like. Hit the little bell for notifications. I seriously want to try putting up more content. I want to do more than once a week, but I kind of like right now just getting all this wrestling news into one bunch and delivering it to you on one day. But normally I post on Saturdays. This week I waited till Sunday just because I wanted to see the Omega and Moose match last night at the pay-per-view. So just, click the bell. If I start posting more, if more things start going up, you'll be aware of it. You'll know every time it comes up, you'll get that little notification. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, please be so good to yourself and be good to each other. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.